Bach had begun his 6 Brandenburg concertos with a rather old-fashioned piece, the Brandenburg Concerto No. 1 being stately and stentorian, rather formal sounding. I feel that he brings the set to a close in the Brandenburg Concerto No. 6 in something of a similar vein. It also is a very formal sounding piece, although it's a little bit more unbuttoned. We've been through a lot of territory since that first Brandenburg Concerto. So now, in a way, in the 6th Brandenburg Concerto, he's getting a little bit formal again, and yet he's not losing the sort of buoyant vigor that has informed this whole set. The 6th Brandenburg Concerto is for a string orchestra, just like the 3rd had been, except in this case it's got a different orchestration, and again it has an unusual one. Bach calls for pairs of stringed instruments, 2 viola da braccio, that means a viola played with the arm, basically a modern viola. Then 2 viola da gamba parts, this is a viola that would be rested between your knees, and then 2 cellos, rather similar in range to the viola da gamba, but with a different timbre, and then a bass part underscoring the whole thing. You'll notice there are no violins. So this whole thing has a tessitura, in other words, a level of pitch that's quite low. When you don't have the brilliance of violins, you have a sort of muted, somber, burnished quality. And that's one of the characteristics, one of the real fingerprints of the 6th Brandenburg Concerto is that burnished sound. Well, one of the real miracles of Bach's writing, and there are so many, but we do find one here in the first movement of the 6th Brandenburg Concerto. If we look at the 2 viola parts, a musician will look and immediately spot that these are written in canon. Now, canon is a musical process that basically was an obsession of composers from the Middle Ages on. Bach loved working in canon. To call it a musical crossword puzzle is probably to make it sound far more simple than it is, but it is a musical puzzle of a kind in which you would have a single line of music, but you could create a polyphonic piece, in other words, a piece of many lines out of that single line of music. How would you do this? Well, maybe 2 performers play that line of music at the same time, but one begins a little bit later than the other does. Or maybe the second musician plays it transposed up to a different pitch level, maybe a note higher than it's originally written. These are examples of how maybe one begins playing it and the other one begins from the end and plays from back to front, and both of the musicians play at the same time. Does it sound like it would be difficult to make that work? Yes, it is. But Bach was very capable of doing this sort of thing and spent a lot of time mastering the art of canon. And in the 6th Brandenburg Concerto's first movement, the 2 viola parts are written in canon, both playing at the same line, at the same pitch, but the second one begins 1 beat behind the first one. And now, it's not the whole first movement that operates this way, but it's the part that we call the ritornello. It's the orchestral section that keeps returning to sort of punctuate the different solo sections that happen in between it. So from time to time, we'll hear this da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. This is the main theme, and the 2 violas are playing this just a beat apart. Now, you would listen to this piece and very likely never notice. And that's the most wonderful thing about it. It's that Bach has done something that is supremely difficult, and he's made it so easy sounding that we don't even need to feel that he's doing anything special. Believe me, it's very special.